Perfect. So, as I said, welcome everybody. This is the first webinar that I've hosted for Oxfordshire Community Foundation. Just a couple of quick introductions. So my name is Claire Hughes. I have been the newly appointed Head of Grants and Inclusion for OCF since June, July. And this kind of marks my 3 month with the organisation. So there are people on the webinar that I know from wearing different hats and from my previous role. So hello if you know me already, and hello if you don't. I'm really looking forward to working with you in the future. I'd just also like to introduce my colleague Sarah, who's our grants officer at OCF, who will also be presenting some guidance documents later, and Susanna Hobbs, who's our communications manager, who will be the kind of the admin for the webinar. So I think we've got quite a lot to fit in the next 45 minutes. So I think we'll start, if that's okay. Just bear with me a moment. Just a thumbs up from Susanna and Sarah that the screen is visible and everybody can see. Perfect. So this is the ongoing grant from the original community capacity grant that was held in the winter of 2022. So we've launched on the 6th of September the community capacity funding. This is with thanks from Oxfordshire County Council, who have supported with £325,000 to be made to help Oxfordshire's residents live independently and healthily for as long as possible in their lives. So it's really to support people over the age of 18 with health resilience and to live independently. So the amounts available for this round are £5,000 to £20,000, group annual income of under 1 million, and the types of costs that are eligible for this round of funding are ongoing running costs, project capital and promotional costs. The closing date for this round is midday on the 28th of September. So you can see from the timeline there, funding decisions will be announced by the 1st of December, and all successful applicants will be required to provide their financial and governance evidence by the 8th of December, with the goal to have the grants paid by the 22nd of December. That's obviously based on financial and governance evidence being received and checked. All of this information is on our webpage as well, so you can refer to this ongoing. So the desired outcomes for this grants round, the community capacity grant, so this supports the council's Oxfordshire Way vision to support people of Oxfordshire to live well in their community. So as I said, to remain fit and healthy as long as possible, and it really is to build up that community resilience and to promote independence for as long as possible. Local community organisations, we know, play a huge role in supporting people to thrive and to require the need for less government services. So this can help people to have a more independent but much better quality of life. In this round, we are seeking grant proposal which deliver some of the following outcomes. So support people to live independently, reduce individual isolation and loneliness, and to promote emotional resilience, to increase people's mental health to address preventable conditions, and finally to enable people to engage with physical activity to address preventable conditions. So some example activities that we are going to be looking for. So these are just examples of the types of activities that the assessors will be looking for. Obviously, there are lots of other ones, but this is just a set of examples for you. So local groups, activities and social afternoons, including volunteering opportunities, might be things like warm spaces, cold spaces, etc. Things that really support people to join together and to promote and alleviate loneliness and isolation, but also promote their mental health and their physical well-being. Befriending and community meals and transport, counselling, advice and support groups, interventions that address digital exclusion. So it might be, for instance, sessions that promote the use of how to use digital devices that may then support people to go online and to find groups, etc., which it gets them out and about, especially when we're looking at rural locations, and redevelopment or use of open green spaces to support mental and physical well-being. So this isn't an exhaustive list, but obviously these are some of the examples that the assessors will be looking for this time. Further notes, we really are going to welcome collaboration between groups or joint linked proposals. So you may already be working with another organisation and have a project that's upcoming, or it might be an opportunity for you to get together, particularly in your local community, to think of the gaps or things that you need and actually link together and show that there's some collaborative working between schemes which are led by the community and build on existing networks for mutual aid, social enterprises and schemes which work with local businesses to provide financially sustainable solutions, and finally schemes which fill gaps and therefore increase the options available to social prescribers. So social prescribing, for people that aren't aware, our social prescribers aren't medically trained people, but they support people with things that are non-clinical that might then prevent them from having numerous doctor's appointments, and they can support them with socially local groups or courses or things that would improve their mental and physical well-being, but obviously would reduce the number of appointments that they go to the doctors, etc. for. So eligible applicants this time. So to apply, your organisation must be a registered charity, a charitable incorporated organisation, a charitable company limited by guarantee, community interest companies, a constituted but unincorporated club or association, so it might be a sports club or an arts association, etc. As long as you have a constitution and it's not one of the other entities listed above. You must operate in Oxfordshire. Your beneficiaries must be within Oxfordshire. Your income must be under £1 million and at least 1 year of operation. If you are constituted for less than 1 year but active for longer, we would just need to see evidence to be able to show this. Have a bank account in its own name with at least 2 unrelated signatories, open for 3 months or more. Have at least 3 trustees, committee members, directors who are not related to each other, and have at least 3 months running cost and reserves. If there are more than 12 months reserves, then we would just seek an explanation should you be successful. Also, be open to people of all religions and political affiliations and must not attempt to convert people. Up-to-date monitoring and reporting to OCF for any previous grants that you may have received from us. The following applicants who are not eligible are obviously individuals, national charities or financially integrated branches, public bodies or statutory organisations, including parish town councils. However, PTAs and friends of organisations are eligible to apply as long as they meet the criteria, and the funding will be used for activities outside of the curriculum. So, for example, it might be family wellbeing or some physical activities. And charities where beneficiaries are solely animals. The eligibility around the costs that will be permitted for the grant, costs that are eligible, costs incurred from grant award 2023 until the 30th 24, ongoing running costs including full cost recovery, project costs, capital cost and promotional costs. The following types of costs are not eligible: costs which have already been incurred, changes to land, buildings which do not belong to the applicant, purchase of bus or other vehicles, large-scale construction projects, including fixed structures, for example, playgrounds, etc. All of this information is available on our guidance document on our website as well. So, limits on public subsidy. I do have a couple of examples to share with you, but as these funds are 100% public money, we cannot give a grant to an organisation specifically to fund activities which would be charged to the public. So where there is an existing economic market for such activities. For example, there are other providers where activities are currently offered to them where there is a public charge, or where that organisation has received more than £315,000, including the value of the grant from public authorities in the current year and the previous 2 years. So really the last 3 years. We don't think this is going to be a common issue on this round, because based on previous rounds, but we have to ask questions in the questionnaire to identify if there's a possible issue. So if you've applied already, you may have seen the questions that we've asked about, are you charging for a service, or are you aware of other organisations charging for a service? So just these examples are on the guidance document, but just a couple of questions just to support this. So I'm a community centre charging 50p for a coffee. Do I need to answer yes to both the questions about charging? So I think the kind of the short of it is, if these charges are very little and they're not for the main activity that you're applying the grant for, then it wouldn't count as charging, especially if it's a donation. So you would answer no in that circumstance. If you are a community taxi service charging a discounted rate for taxis, do I need to answer yes for both? So if the charges are larger and they are for the main activity of the grant proposal, then you would need to answer yes. For example, if you charge for a taxi service or counselling sessions, even if this is subsidised, this is because other providers may offer the services for a charge. So I appreciate that this can be quite confusing, or it may be something that you're not sure about how to answer. Our guidance document, which is available on the website, really explains this more thoroughly. But if you do have any questions when you're filling your application around the public subsidy, we've been more than happy to support you. And these are the types of questions we can upload into our FAQs and can also discuss with you if you come into one of our drop-in sessions. So please don't worry about it, and please don't not apply because you're worried about what to answer. So the beneficiaries for this round, eligible beneficiaries. So this grants round is targeting people who are over 18. And if there are any schemes which include under 18, so this might be intergenerational visits where nurseries and young people go to visit older people in care homes, definitely welcome to apply, but the target beneficiaries must still be over the age of 18. So don't be put off if your organisation is supporting over 18s, but some of the people involved may be under 18. We just need an explanation on that. So this grant is intended to help vulnerable adults and those experiencing inequality and exclusion. These include groups from underserved and traditional government services. So that's what we're really looking for in this grants round. One important note for this grants round, it's exclusively for beneficiaries outside of the 10 most disadvantaged wards. So the previous rounds were the 10 most disadvantaged, and I've listed them here. There have been the questions already, am I eligible to apply? Our headquarters is based in one of the disadvantaged areas, but actually we're going to support people outside of these areas. Absolutely. What we'd say is when you fill in your application form, just be really explicit about where the beneficiaries are. They're obviously based in Oxfordshire, but we just need to know what service you're providing and where the beneficiaries are going to be. Equally, you might be based outside of the 10 wards, but you might be wanting to support people and do activities inside. We just need to know exactly which way around it is, and just to be quite explicit in the application. Just some further requirements. So all applications must be set out how they would deliver one or more of the 4 desired outcomes, including what activities they will do. So be really, really thorough in your application form. All applicants must submit an itemised budget, and Sarah will explain further, what the assessors are looking for shortly. And successful applicants will be required to supply all the documentation for good governance. So we, for any organisations that are successful in this round, we will ask for your governance documents and your accounts afterwards. So you don't have to spend time doing that now, because we understand filling an application form can be quite a stressful or big thing in the first place. So actually, we did it in the cost of living round. We're going to do it again in this round, where we're going to ask for the documents afterwards. But just to point out around the management accounts and the accounts, if they're not in the most recent financial year, then we may ask you for some management accounts or something that includes your financial data at least up to March 2023 or more recently. Successful applicants will be required to provide safeguarding policy to receive funds. This is standard OCF practice, and that's something that we would ask you for if you were successful. And you would also be required to provide some online monitoring, which would need to be returned within 12 months. So one of the main parts of my new role is to bring in accessibility options and inclusivity options. So we have piloted on this round more accessibility options. In the cost of living round, we added a few, we simplified the application form to make it much shorter, and we asked for the governing documents afterwards to make it less time consuming for applicants. What we've done in this round is to add a few more steps to think about accessibility. So it's really important to us that we wanted to make our grant application as straightforward and as transparent as possible, which allows everyone to apply in a fair and equitable way. And this is part of our journey for us. We are looking at how we can improve the process for all applicants. So in this grants round, we want to trial video applications from 2 applicants who would benefit from using this format. And we can support you if you're interested in applying via video. Then just get in touch with us at the OCF inbox and we will be able to facilitate that for you. It's formed as a pilot this time, and we'd really like to get some feedback on what that looks like to add to our accessibility options. We've also provided an example of a good application form, so it could support people. Maybe it's the first time you've applied for a grant from us, or you may have applied for a grant previously before and been unsuccessful. So we want to offer as many tools and as much support as we can, which Sarah will go through shortly. We also have some online virtual drop-in sessions. So the first one is tomorrow, as I mentioned, and we really want to see as many people as possible to just drop into those sessions. Any questions you've got, if it relates to the application form, if you're not sure, if there's elements of it that, you know, technically you're struggling with, or you just like to ask us, is this grant for us? Do you think it's worth applying? The virtual sessions are for that. I don't know how many people are going to come on. It's only open for an hour. So if there are lots of people waiting, we might have to limit the sessions to 5 to 10 minutes each. But if there's anything further support, then we can obviously do that offline with you to enable you to make this application as easy as possible and to support. And we have a face-to-face drop-in session on the 19th of September where you can come to our HQ. We're really close to the Westgate, so there's plenty of public transport links, and you can just pop in, meet the team, have a cup of tea, and just, you know, we can just talk through the application and any issues or feedback or support that you may wish to give us, as much as we can give you. Another thing that we're piloting and we want to build on is using accessible technology. So if you could benefit from any additional tools that could help with your PC or laptop more easily, we have been looking at ways we can do that. So Microsoft really have a useful page that provides information on all the settings. There are some really good accessible options on Windows and Microsoft 365. Again, if there are any particular gaps which you think that we could be supporting with, we'd love to hear about them. It may be that you use a tool that we've not heard about that we could make available to people, or we can really support people kind of step by step in the future. Translating, very aware that English may not be everybody's first language, and we want to make sure that our applications and our grants rounds are accessible for everybody. We haven't quite mastered an in-house system yet. It's very early days, but there's Google Translate, which can automatically translate all of our grants webpage and our guidance document. Just a note from Susanna that it's best worked on Chrome browser. But again, if there's any problems or any guidance that you need, we're definitely here to support that. So just pick up the phone, come to one of our virtual sessions, or drop us an email. So this is just to reiterate what I just said. These are the dates of the virtual drop-in sessions. The links for those are on our webpage. So first one's tomorrow, so I do hope we see some of you tomorrow. The next one's Friday the 22nd, 12 till 1, and Tuesday the 26th. And then we have the physical drop-in session, which is on the 19th of September, 2 till 3:30. So I think most of you know where we are, but all of the information is available on our webpage as well. And we do encourage you to come, because I think it's nice just to put names to faces and just to come and see where we are and meet our wider team, actually. So not just the grants team, finance team, development and comms team, because we can support you in different ways. So as I mentioned earlier, we have tried to be as transparent as we can with this round by providing all of the eligibility requirements, what the assessors are really looking for. With the frequently answered questions document, Sarah has been collating feedback from the cost of living round, previous grants rounds, and common questions that come up during an active grants round. So by no way is this a finished document. It's definitely a working document. Any kind of questions or anything that comes up in the chat or the virtual sessions, we're going to continually be adding to this. But I'm going to stop sharing now and allow Sarah to talk about the two documents. Again, if you've got any questions, just pop them in the chat. So just bear with me. I'm not a Zoom specialist, so I'm going to stop sharing and allow Sarah to take control.
Hi everyone, Sarah here. I work with Claire on the grants team at OCF. I am just going to start sharing my screen. Hopefully you can all see my example of a recently completed community capacity grant application. Claire, does that, can you see everything? Can you just let me know? Yeah. Okay, so one of the first questions we ask is, please describe the overall aims and objectives of your organisation and the activities or services your organisation provides. Obviously, this is a general question, not related to what you want the grant for, but it's just a good, if you could just give us a brief explanation of what your organisation does and maybe an example activity or your main usual activities. In this case, this was a day centre. It's all anonymised so that, you know, for obvious reasons. But for example, they've said their objective at this centre is to support customers to live independently for longer. Well, that just happens to really match our requirements for this round beautifully. This support is not only delivered at our centre, but also by outreach to the community. This is delivered by providing nourishing, freshly prepared meals, the provision of companionship, and our organisation's work activities, both physically and mentally stimulating, designed to keep customers fit and independent, reducing falls and providing good company, addressing loneliness and isolation. So in this example, before they've even got to the point where they're talking about what they might want to be applying for financially this time, we're already seeing one of the biggest themes that assessors will be looking for, which is the activities you provide and the outcomes that you're hoping to achieve from those activities. When our panel of assessors are looking at your applications, they actually weight 60% onto the activities and outcomes that you've demonstrated in your application. So that's by far the greatest consideration is given to that part of your application. So this is just, as I said, a general introduction. But here you go. To help us understand the difference you make, please tell us how you have helped an individual in the past and the change your organisation has made to their life. And here the centre has said, as part of our work at the centre in the community, we quietly identify and provide help to customers who are struggling financially, a good number over the last year or so. To give a specific example, we had a customer struggling to pay, I think, for the small fee they asked if people could pay, you know, to come to the day centre. So discreetly, we did not always charge them. We then asked them if they would like some help to find out if they may be eligible for attendance allowance. They agreed. We have a specialist volunteer with social services experience who then visited their home and discussed their situation with them and their relatives. As a result of the discussion, our volunteer helped to complete and submit an application for attendance allowance, including back pay. Approximately £70 per week was awarded with a backdated allowance of £800. Our customer had the acute worry and associated stress of paying her bills, food and heating costs taken away, and then felt able to switch on her heating, a material impact on her overall quality of life. So as you can see, they've really demonstrated something that they've done, and then the outcome for that particular user of their service. Please explain why the people in your community need your organisation. We have an increasing population of elderly people in our 3 parishes in the surrounding area, many living alone with inflation directly impacting their well-being. We are increasingly needed for the overall support we provide: companionship, stimulation, entertainment, good nutritious food, and help with allowances and modern life's challenges. Our recent expansion allows us to increase numbers and serve a wider area. To quote from our recent customer survey, which is almost universally complimentary, our new leader and volunteers work so hard for us, helping and talking to us and welcoming us warmly. Most of us live on our own, and it can be quite lonely. It is great talking to each other and realizing that there is always someone with a greater need than oneself. Thank you all. We also support the continuing need for our at-home outreach service, providing hot meals and necessary errands. Our weekly free coffee morning provides a warm space and informal companionship. So continuing the theme of a lot of detail about the activities they're doing, how they're helping their beneficiaries, who their beneficiaries are, although I'm going to come on to that, and the hopefully profound effects it seems to be having. The second section is where we ask you about the funding start date and end date that you propose for your application. What area do most of the people who benefit come from, and a postcode which represents the geographic area that will benefit. So this brings me to another aspect. 20% of the assessor's scoring that they give your application will be down to evidence of the beneficiaries. So, for example, they will be looking for evidence, not just evidence of your beneficiaries. It'll be how you're going to attract them, or how you do already attract them. Maybe if you're looking to branch out into some new or additional services, maybe demonstrate how you intend to find this new audience or different audience. And then really we would be looking for some evidence of why you feel they are disadvantaged community, or perhaps underserved traditionally, or are they harder to reach? That would be sort of spot on for community capacity funding. The next section: how will you spend this grant to deliver one or more of the desired outcomes outlined in the grant criteria? Please include what activities you intend to deliver and why you think they will lead to the desired outcome, i.e. a positive change. I think I've already spoken and covered this quite a bit, and why outcomes and activities are key. But in this case, for the award they're applying for, they're saying they will spend the funding to cover ongoing increased running costs, which is absolutely fine, due to inflation with food, energy and wages. This will enable us to maintain our quality of service, providing a warm space where people can socialise, eat a meal with other members of their community, enhancing their physical and mental well-being, and increase our capacity to help more people in need in our local area. So again, one other thing I would say is they have again mentioned things that are specifically, and you can see that on the website for this grant, specifically themes that we're looking for community capacity. So in your application, if you can just keep referring back to what the funder is looking for in this round, which we've detailed a lot in the guidance, just keep asking yourself when you're writing your application, am I closely matching the theme and what they're looking for? Then please explain how you will measure and report on this grant. So there'll be 3 key areas for this applicant: a follow-up customer survey to confirm that their customer satisfaction level has been maintained or increased, and they will monitor their customer numbers in their year-end accounts analysis. So we asked the questions of your beneficiaries: how many people do you think will benefit from this funding? It's important to be realistic. It's fine to be a bit optimistic, but it's important it would be realistic, because if it's an enormous number stated, the assessors might, it's possible they might think, gosh, I think that's not really realistic, and it could, make them think twice for some reason or another, or it might just cause them to feel that, oh, it's way overestimated, I don't have 100% confidence in their statement of how many beneficiaries, and that is, as you know, part of the marking. Then they've said primary beneficiaries, older people, other beneficiaries, carers. I would say that closely aligns with this round, or the aims of this round. Ethnicity, if applicable. Of course, you don't have to answer this, but in this case, they've said primary ethnic group, British, other ethnic groups. They declined to answer. That's absolutely fine. That would never count against any group. Issues, primary issue, health and well-being. Other issues, poverty and disadvantage. Age groups, this is seniors, and other age groups, they've said there may be some age 26 to 65. Now we move on to budget. This is the final 20% of our assessors scoring. So 60%, I'll just remind you, on activities and outcomes, 20% on how well you've identified the beneficiaries that you're hoping to reach, and then the final 20% is on your budget. In this case, the total cost of what this day centre is hoping to achieve is 54,660. In this case, it may be that that is their upcoming costs for the grant period, and they're applying for ongoing running costs. So they're actually applying to us for 7,794, and then you can see they have given a particularly detailed breakdown of those costs. So it does seem simple that if you're going for ongoing costs, just put the total, but we would really ask, don't be tempted to just say 5,500 for a staff member's salary. It would be much better if you could give us detail on that. So, for example, if you wanted to fund a salary of a particular member of staff as part of your application, or even all of your application, perhaps you could give us details like, we're going to be running this service for 12 weeks. This is the staff member's hourly rate, and we will be having 4 hours a week for 12 weeks. If you can break down the total salary that you're applying for and where that's going in terms of hours and weeks, that would be ideal. In this case, they have said increasing costs for food, staff, cleaning and energy to enable us to maintain and hopefully expand our services, increased food and staff costs for 2024 based on a low predicted inflation increase of 3% up to August. So electricity costs for 24-25 are based on the predicted cost in 2024 when our contract ends. Our financial year is 1st of April to 31st of March. So as you can see, they've really gone out of their way here to show us previous year's costs for various categories, the current year's cost, and their projected cost for next year, which couldn't be better, to be honest. And they've done it with food, staffing, cleaning, electricity costs, gas costs, and total costs. Then they have given you proportions of these increases for the grant periods that they're applying for. So the overall increase from 2022 to 23 for them to 23 to 24 was £6,012. The amount for the period of September, the grant period, September 2023 to March 2024, was 7/12 of that. That's £3,507. The overall increase 2023 to 24 to 24 to 25 was 10,289. And so the amount for the period April to August 2024 was 4,287. And that demonstrates how they have come to, from the two totals for the grant period added together, that's 3,507 and 4,287 came to 7,794. So we really, really clearly can see how they've come to the figure that they are asking for. That always, looks great to an assessor and really makes them feel confident in what they're marking. Okay, so that covers the application guidance. Claire, would you like me to talk a bit about the FAQs now? Yes, okay, I am just going to switch the document that I'm sharing. One moment, I'll just stop sharing while I find the other one. Okay. As Claire said earlier, we've started this frequently asked questions document because we understandably get a lot of queries whenever we launch a grants round. But the benefit of being on our third round of community capacity is we've got lots of history of common questions that are asked, and we're going to keep updating this document as more and more queries come in, especially if we're receiving the same ones over and over. So can we apply to community capacity if we have applied before? Yes, absolutely. Please do. If you have applied before and received a grant, just bear in mind that a new application must be for activity which wasn't funded in the previous application. Obviously, it also has to apply even if you applied for ongoing costs last time and you're going for ongoing costs again. Obviously, now you want to be giving an updated budget for the grants period of this third round. What should the budget and delivery timelines be for community capacity applications? We expect to confirm conditional grant awards by the 1st of December. So you should be notified by the 1st if you have been successful or not. Funds will be transferred subject to successful applicants providing your necessary governance documentation after that. We can't fund costs that have already been incurred, in other words, costs from the past or before the grants period. Funds need to be spent within 12 months of the grant award as well. So the grant spend period comes to an end on the 30th of November 2024, I believe. Assuming the necessary paperwork is quickly provided, we're hoping to start making payments and therefore funding your costs from the middle of December 2023 to the 30th of November 2024. Next question. We are part of a larger national charity, but we have an Oxfordshire branch. Can we still apply? We do get this query really quite often. I would say, first of all, OCF one of our main reasons for existence is funding local grassroots charities. So it's the local emphasis for us is huge. We do sometimes get larger charities outside the county applying, but they tend to have they have to have a local branch within Oxfordshire. We look for circa 90% of the beneficiaries of any group that we fund to be based within the county. The other condition would be that you have to have separate finances from the larger organisation that's based elsewhere outside the county. So if you don't have a bank account in your own name for the charity and the branch within Oxfordshire, then I'm afraid it's going to be a no. says here, if your finances are separate to your own bank account from the national organisation and you have a local management committee, then you can apply. If your finances are integrated with the national organisation, then I'm afraid definitely not. Why are you asking about whether we will charge for activities and whether there are other organisations who charge for these activities? Now, this is to do with the subsidies that Claire mentioned earlier. These awards will be funded from 100% public money, statutory money. We need to be careful about unfairly subsidising activities. We can't give a grant to an organisation specifically to fund activities which will be charged to the public and where there is an existing economic market for such activities. In other words, if there are other providers of such activities currently offering them to the public for a charge, and your organisation has received more than £315,000, including the value of this grant, from public authorities over the previous 3 fiscal years, this fiscal year and 2 previous fiscal years. We don't expect this to be a common issue because we do tend to receive applications from small grassroots organisations. And it's not something that, that rears its head too often for us. We will use the answers in the questionnaires to identify where there is a possible subsidy issue, and we'll be in contact with individual organisations to clarify if we need to. Charging is not necessarily a barrier. Next question. I'm a community centre charging 50p for a coffee. Do I need to answer yes to both questions about charging? If your charges are very little and are not for the main activity of your grant proposal, then this will not count as charging and you can answer no. For example, if you are a dementia daycare centre, which also offers coffee for a small amount, a small cost, then this will not count as charging, even though there are coffee shops charging for coffee. I am a community taxi service charging a discounted rate for taxis. Do I need to answer yes to both questions on the form about charging? If the charges are larger and they're for the main activity of your grant proposal, then you would need to answer yes. For example, if you charge for a taxi service or counselling sessions, even if this is subsidised. This is because other providers offer the services for a charge. If your application was successful, we would then ask you to go through an extra process called the Minimal Financial Assistance Notification to confirm whether your organisation has received more than £315,000, including the value of this grant award, from public authorities in the current fiscal year and the previous 2. If in doubt, you should answer yes, and we'll follow up later if necessary. You're also welcome to call us for advice. How should I answer the question about charging if donations are encouraged for the main activity, but payments are not required? If there is no contractual demand, then it does not count as a charge and you can answer no. When the question about charging refers to the public, who does this include? This essentially refers to everyone, including if you're only working with a section of the public. For example, if you charge for a community transport service, which is only for people referred by social prescribers, then this would count as a charge to the public. Do I need extra research to find out if other providers, do I need to do extra research, to find out if other providers of such activities are offering them to the public for a charge? If you're reasonably certain that no other provider is offering such activities for a charge and no further research is required, then you can answer no. If you're not sure, then you should err on the side of caution and choose yes, and then we can do further research if you're successful with your application. I've just got one final one to quickly go through. Claire, I'm watching the time thinking you've got a few more slides. What is the difference between the Community Capacity Fund administered by Oxfordshire Community Foundation and the Connected Communities Fund administered by OCVA and CFO? That's Community First Oxfordshire. I would say the general aims of the 2 funds are the same, but the Connected Communities Fund has a specific focus on increasing the number of activities available to people within their communities, primarily for older people, though also for adults with additional needs. The fund would not support running costs that aren't directly associated with providing a regular group activity. The community capacity, I would say the other thing to highlight is connected communities is really for smaller amounts, smaller organizations, I guess, maybe not with such a clear structure as we need for our grants. And it's for amounts up to £5,000. Whereas the Community Capacity Fund that we're administering is for, applications for between £5,000 and £20,000. Those are the main differences. So at that, I will leave it to Claire now to pick up again and stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Sarah. I do appreciate we've gone over slightly, but I think it was really important for us to be able to share as much information as we can. All of this webinar will be available on the website. So I'm just going to share my screen again. Bear with me 1 second. I pressed the wrong button, which I knew I'd do. I knew there'd be something that goes wrong in this. I'm not really technically minded. Here we go. Let's have a look. Perfect. So I just think the final thing to say on this is around the monitoring evaluation. So we've worked with the council to try to capture the results for any funded applications in a really sympathetic way that is meaningful, but allows for really good feedback that can be reported on. So in this round, we have adopted a lighter touch approach, which will still get the data we need, but it will support feedback from organisations who may find the monitoring and evaluation part of a grant quite challenging. So I'm not going to go into too much detail on this because all of this is available on the website, but just to say that a small working group have been together to come up with 6 questions, and we would ask successful groups to ask a minimum number of beneficiaries towards the end of the grant. We'd also encourage organisations to report on lessons learned, successes and challenges, and we really would value your stories of change. We want to see those rich impacts, those testimonials, those anecdotal quotes that you get when you are delivering your activity. So the grant recipients will be required to provide an end-of-year report by the 12th of January 2025. And the latest delivery on their grant, which must be spent by the 30th of November 2024. So this includes the total number of beneficiaries, the demographics of the beneficiaries, which you can see on the screen, caring responsibilities, and if people are living alone. And I have, so it's basically a questionnaire response summary, and the questions are on the following page because we wanted to be really transparent with them. So the grant recipient should ask beneficiaries to select a question from the table. The grant recipient should invite beneficiaries to complete more than one question where they feel they're able to collect the data and when it's appropriate to their activity. This is an optional request and no beneficiary should be forced to answer a question they're not comfortable with. So the data will be collected towards the end of the grant period. These questions have been drawn from national and county questionnaires, but they've really been chosen and tested where we feel it's relevant and also appropriate to the context of the grant. So here are the questions. I'm not going to read through all of them, but just to say, have a look on the webinar once it's published, have a look at the questions, which these are the questions that we're going to ask, and really think about how you would propose that you would ask these to the beneficiaries. And also, again, feedback. We really, really encourage feedback from both yourselves and the grant recipients. So just to note again, it would be interesting to see the successes and challenges of your grant and the activity that you've delivered, any stories of change, and particularly any lessons learned, because these really do help us to continue to support people when they're applying, and also that can then be passed down to the beneficiaries themselves. So I really appreciate you coming onto the webinar. Apologies that it's run over slightly. Just to say that this will be available, Susanna, on the web for people to refer to, and the guidance document that Sarah, the application, the example application, the FAQs is also available on the web page, and we have a guidance document that supports you when you're filling in your application. So please do pop into one of our virtual sessions. It'll be lovely to see you face to face on the 19th of September. And if you need any other further support, or there are any burning questions that we weren't able to cover in the webinar, then please do email us and we will endeavour to get back to you as quickly as we can. Susanna, is there anything additional that you wanted to add before we close?
No, I don't think so. Just to say that as soon as we've got the recording, we'll put it up on the Community Capacities Grant page on the website. So you can find it there and watch back. But all of the content is available on the grants page, either on the page itself or in the guidance document. And there you'll find the link to the example application as well.
Perfect. So I'm going to close this webinar. Thank you ever so much for coming on. It's been a really good pilot for us to share some of the more accessibility options that we're trying to achieve, and we look forward to receiving your applications. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.